Indy Lights. They took to the track earlier today. Martin Plowman was on pole. You can see in the yellow number 2 behind him, James Hinchcliffe trying to get in there early, but Plowman just slams the door shut. Hinchcliffe working as hard as he can, and take a look at this. Just pushing a little bit too much in turn 5, slides off course, and then when he comes back on, look right there, he almost takes out his teammate, Adrian Campos Jr. when he rejoined the race. There at the end, Martin Plowman took it. He led flag to flag, bringing a win to Andretti Autosport. Dan Clark came in second. Charlie Kimball came in third. Now let's look at the updated points for Indy Lights. J.K. Vernay still leading there. Hinchcliffe in second, Plowman in third, Kimball in fourth, and Sebastian Saavedra in fifth. Also, back in the field for IndyCar today, hometown favorite Graham Rahal. He's starting 25th. Graham, who grew up and lives in Ohio, will be racing for Newman Haas in 5 of the 6 remaining races. Not his first trip here. Take a listen to this.
Daddy and gentlemen, start your engines!
Yes, that was Graham Rahal back in 1998. And speaking of hometown heroes, it's time to salute this week's National Guard hometown hero, Sergeant First Class Sean Clifton. Sergeant Clifton has served 16 years in the military, 9 with U.S. Army Special Forces. In his second tour of Afghanistan last year, he was wounded during a raid. He has undergone more than 20 surgical procedures. He's currently attached to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force in Columbus, Ohio. Sergeant First Class Sean Clifton, today's National Guard hometown hero. Well, when we come back, we will take a look at the dramatic finish at Edmonton 2 weeks ago. We will talk to the driver in the middle of it all, Helio Castroneves. You are watching IndyCar Central on Versus. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio. We are just over 10 minutes away from the start of today's Honda Indy 200. Well, 2 weeks after Edmonton, everybody is still talking about the final 3 laps of that race. Well, Helio was black flagged, and he didn't win what could have been his second win of the 2010 season. Well, like any sport, the IndyCar Series has a set of rules, and drivers and teams are expected to follow them. But because the diversity of tracks that we have here in the IndyCar Series, we have 9 street and road courses, each event requires its own set of track-specific rules. About 3 hours before each race, there is a driver's meeting led by Brian Barnhart. And we begin with a recap of the Edmonton driver's meeting. Take a listen.
And we shouldn't have any defending or blocking. Again, we'll be visually dividing the braking point to the entry in the corner in the half. You can only be on the inside half if you're overtaking someone and attempting to pass. If you're down there when you're being passed, that's blocking, and don't impede the progress of the car behind you or move your car in reaction to following actions of a car behind you.
On a restart with 3 laps to go and Helio in the lead, as they take the green flag, you can see that Helio remained on the inside half of the track, forcing Will Power to the outside. And in the battle between the Penske teammates, Scott Dixon gets around Will Power for second place. So when race control black flags Castroneves at that point, it's Scott Dixon who is given the lead. Instead of the required pass-through penalty down pit road, Helio decided to stay out and take the checkered flag first. But it was Dixon who was awarded the victory. And as many of you saw, Helio showed uncharacteristic emotion, first confronting IndyCar Technical Director Kevin Blanche, then taking it up with the flag stand, before grabbing League Director of Security Charles Burns. Later, we caught up with both Brian Barnhart and Helio Castroneves.
2 laps to go. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I never moved my line. I actually gave room him outside. And when you go side by side like that with your teammate, and the guy just swept, it's literally just take it away from you. It's just absurd.
We divide the track physically in half, and on the road courses from the braking point to entry, they're told you can only be on the inside half if you're attempting to overtake someone. If you're on the inside half while someone's trying to overtake you, it's blocking.
Well, since Castroneves did not perform his drive-through penalty, race control gave him a 20-second penalty. That placed the number 3 car in 10th place. This past Monday, IndyCar Series officials also fined Elio $60,000 and put him on probation for the remainder of the season. Moments ago, Jack Arute caught up with Elio.
And Lindy, Elio Castroneves comes to Mid-Ohio with a $60,000 fine. Let's talk about that first-year position about that.
Well, I have to thank all the fans, you know, especially with the support they gave me here. But the first thing I got here, this little girl, probably about 8 or 10 years old, and she wrote me this. I'm like, you know, let's move on. And that's why, for me, it's I'm just going to move on and try to do the best race I can over here.
Let's talk about what it's going to take to have a good race for you. I mean, your teammate, William Power, as you like to call him, is really making mincemeat of the rest of the competition.
He is definitely an incredible talent. He's certainly showing a lot of special in diversity situations. Again, I mean, he's proving he's a good talent. And not only that, he's leading the championship. For us, that's starting on the top 6. We're going to try to do everything we can. We can catch him. We can pass there because it's a tough track. But in the end of the day, we just got to be there in the end. Any urgency on your part, knowing that we're to the last part of the season, and you've got to catch William, as you like to call him? Well, certainly my strategy right now is to win. I don't have more about finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. I mean, you got to collect as much points as you can, and that's where we're going to go. Lindy?
Thank you, Jack. And now I want to bring in 2 of the gentlemen who will be calling today's race, and they are also former open-wheel drivers themselves, Jan Beekes and Robbie Buell. So, guys, what do you make of the events over the last 2 weeks?
Well, Lindy, you got to make the trip north of the border to Canada. Robbie and I were in a studio in Indianapolis, so we didn't get to see that tape of the drivers' meeting until after the race. But clearly, Robbie, when we saw that tape, Brian Barnhart was crystal clear that by the letter of the law, Castroneves had broke it. Agreed?
Yeah. Sorry, Elio, those are the rules.
But if you watched our qualifying show yesterday, we talked about not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. I still like the way that we called it. Down into turn number 1, it was a wide open racetrack. It wasn't really unsafe in my mind. It was just good, hard, clean racing, and we loved it. But Brian Barnhart was so specific, he really had to levy that penalty. So both Robbie and I have gone to Brian Barnhart and said, hey, what about making an exception to the rule when it comes to restarts? Here's what he had to say.
When your rule is based on safety, whether it's a restart or a full speed lap, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. So, you know, again, I think that's one that as an official, we're going to be open to these guys' input on it. We're always going to be telling them what we think the potential ramifications are and where it can go. Ultimately, though, if the majority of the people feel that's a direction we need to go, whether it's a restart or changing the rule altogether, we need to be responsive to that. And you know, it's also a balancing of all those factors as well as what's in the best interest of our sport. Making our sport simple enough for the fans to follow is important for us as well.
Well, we heard Brian say safety's number 1. We all agree. But the competition side of it, it's very difficult to pass on road courses. And what this rule does, it creates opportunity for these drivers to pass, making it more exciting for us as fans. But it's also very good to hear Brian talk about, hey, I'm open to things. And Jan, you and I are in agreement. We're saying, hey, Brian, maybe revisit that rule and it shouldn't be in place on restarts. That could have made a little different show for Elio at Edmonton. But you want to talk about excitement and passes that rule's created? Let's take a look at Brazil. You have a very long back straightaway, a good braking zone. We saw tons of action, good clean passing there. There was a passing for the lead at the end of that, and that race, believe it or not, there were 95 passes through there. So the rules are working and making it exciting for the fans.
But Robbie, we have to really take the counterpoint. If you've been reading the news, you certainly know that Castroneves has come out and said, I think those rules are inconsistent. They're enforced in an inconsistent way. And Toronto keeps coming up. Well, what we've since found out is they define the braking zone as to where you had to move over for Toronto as the Budweiser Bridge.
Yes.
So if you watch the replay first of Castroneves and Vitor Meira, this contact happens before the Budweiser Bridge, but not the case for the next one with Briscoe.
Exactly, and Graham Rahal, who hits the back of Briscoe here, the reason that there was no penalty on Graham is because Briscoe was blocking. He was on the inside of the track at that Budweiser Bridge. So now let's talk about Mid-Ohio here today. The rules are very clear for blocking. There's 2 very good passing zones, pass into turn 2 and into turn 4. And at the breaking point between the cones, between 3 and 4, where that breaking point starts to the turn-in point, if you are trying to overtake somebody, hey, you better be at the inside of those cones. If you're not, trying to pass somebody, you better be on the outside lane.
And there's one great exception to that rule, and that is when you're 2x2 on the start, you can drive on the right-hand side of the track. Look for fireworks right from the green.
Thank you guys for your take on that. And guess what? We're about to start. Thanks for joining us on IndyCar.